One of the foundational tenets of 52 Qs is community. The idea that we're better together and when we surround ourselves with like-minded people of purpose. But we're not alone in this. There are other YouTube channels or Facebook groups or Discord servers all looking to do the same thing. Well, Sink or Swim Music, hosted by songwriter, composer, and music supervisor Robbie Hancock, is one of those communities. With a focus on virtual networking events and conferences, Sink or Swim looks to bring people together from all parts of the industry, from composers to publishers to music supervisors. Their next virtual conference is later in June, and I'm happy to have been invited to speak, so I thought it was a perfect opportunity to bring Robbie onto the show to talk about Sink or Swim, as well as give us some of his own story and talk about how generosity, integrity, and kindness can be the most valuable currency in the media music industry. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Qs podcast, a weekly podcast dedicated to all things production and library music, where we talk about industry topics and take deep dives into the different aspects of being a working production music composer. Plus, we feature a cue written by a member of the 52 Qs community, and this week we're going to be taking a listen to a roots rock style cue written by Christoffer Bjerklund, so you definitely want to stick around for that. If this is your first time here, welcome, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio podcast on the go. I just want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. I also have to give a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patrons of 52 Qs who help keep the podcast, the channel, and everything here going. We are 100% community supported, so if you like what I do here, don't thank me, thank them. But if you want to learn more about how you can help support 52 Qs and also unlock extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, and a ton more, then be sure to click on the links in the description or stick around, because we're going to be talking much more about that a little bit later in today's episode. So the Sink or Swim Music Conference is coming up June 22nd through the 25th, and I was invited to speak there. Really excited. Robbie Hancock, composer, singer-songwriter, music supervisor, reached out to me, and I wanted to have him on the show. I wanted to hear much more about Sink or Swim. I've heard about Sink or Swim from some of our other communities, and I know at the last road rally, I think they have a meetup and a get-together, and so here is my recent chat with Robbie Hancock. I am here with Robbie Hancock, who is a singer, songwriter, a producer, composer, owner-operator of Sink or Swim Music with 1,500 and more placements. This is a guy who has not only been there, he's done that. He's Canadian, so you know he's super friendly. Robbie, how are you doing, my man? It's so good to be with you today.
I'm good, Dave. Thanks for having me, man.
Man, I have a couple of other podcast hosts that I produced who are also Canadian, and I know that it's like kind of a trope, like Canadians are friendly, but I got to tell you, I've never met a Canadian who hasn't been like super friendly, super nice. And so I appreciate, and congratulations on upholding a super positive thing of a trope. If there's going to be a trope, you want to be the trope of being nice. So thank you very much.
No problem. And I'm sorry.
Oh, you're sorry.
We say sorry for no reason.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was late to the thing, right? I apologize that we had to reschedule because it's your fault. Oh, I apologize. Sure.
That's true.
But man, it was so good and exciting to have you. And I know that you've been following the show.
Yep.
And one of the things that I wanted to bring you on about is talking about Sink or Swim music. Can you for listeners who may, or the viewers who may not be familiar with it, what exactly is Sink or Swim music?
Well, Sink or Swim music is based on sync licensing, and that's the main focus for songwriters and what we're usually looking for and have involved with the community is songwriters, composers, and artists, musicians in general that are focused on sync. It is a community led with kindness and empathy, and inclusion and diversity on the forefront. It's an online community, so we run events, but we do other things too, like within membership, there's other things that like sync writing and recording challenges, and it's getting deeper and deeper into the waters, if I need to go there with the whole sink or swim music thing. It's I think it's been easy, for the marketing side of things, to be able to, pick boats and ships and so on. But the Thursday on the event coming up is, called the Regatta. It's a boat race to networking, really. So, but it's focused on networking and education for those that want to get their music into, TV, film, documentaries, commercials, and other media.
And does it really focus on songwriting, or is it also for instrumental composers?
It's both. Yeah. And anyone that wants to get their music into sync. And, a lot of the events I'll have a diverse range of guests that come through, like yourself. You're coming, to the next one, and others that are focused in different areas. Music supervisors, music libraries, record labels, and even people that have a lot of experience in the industry in general that I think that can help with like vocals,
Gotcha.
that kind of thing in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to speaking, and we'll talk about the event here coming up in June in just a moment. But I actually want to back up a little bit.
Okay.
Because as somebody with, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of placements, you are where I imagine many of our listeners and viewers want to be. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, your background, how you got into sync licensing or production music? Just tell us your path so that somebody out there might resonate with it.
Well, that's a big question. So I don't want to go back too far, but I will say, like most that come to the sync doors, I come with a lot of music industry skill and experience. A lot of people come in as teachers. Some people come in with cover bands. Others that are like straight focused songwriters, or a combination of all of them, which is where I kind of came into things in 2013. I actually went down to Nashville. That was my first music industry, put myself out there and find out whether I should keep doing this or not, in 2012. And, at the time I was a cover artist and a music teacher, which I'd been doing both for a really long time. And I went down to Nashville and I met a man by the name of Ralph Murphy, who, changed my life. I didn't know it at the time, but I went down to kind of find things out. And he said, "You're not country, Robbie," because I was going for the whole country music thing and the Alamo, and I thought that was the last place that was buying CDs. So I went down there and I just started talking to people and meeting people that had really done some things in their careers and that could possibly help me. And Ralph took a meeting, and I played 5 songs for him, and he said, "You're not country, Robbie." And I was hard to take. That was when I started getting feedback, and it took a lot longer back then to get over things than it does now. But he said, "But you do have the natural ability to write emotional music. Have you ever tried writing for film and TV?" And I said, "No." And "Have you ever heard of Taxi?" And I said, "No." And then he said, "Well, they're in Los Angeles, and they're one of those companies that can help you get your music into film and TV." And I'm like, "Isn't that one with taxi cabs and the cheesy marketing?" To be honest, and Michael knows this. And so he said, "Yeah, that's the one. He's a friend of mine. I highly recommend that you go and sign up and join." And so that's what I did. So that's how I got into sync licensing, is I joined Taxi, as many others do. And, within that community, that's where things started for me. I'm a 10-year member now. But at the beginning, just like everyone else, I'm coming in going, I already know everything. And I'm going to pitch my music and they're going to love it. And I've just finished this album, so I'm just going to pitch it to every opportunity that I can find. And so I got like 70 returns in the first year. And that was hard. But I also learned a lot from that. Yeah. And then there was a big turning point when I started realizing how different sync is, and that we're trying to support others and give them what they're asking for rather than what we're trying to give them that's maybe already made. And that changed the game for me. It's like writing to listings and writing to briefs, outside of Taxi and other things. But I'm definitely a Taxi supporter and advocate there. And that was really the start for me getting into sync licensing. And
right on. Yeah, we've talked about Taxi here on the show. I recently was doing a year of Taxi, and I'm a big believer in Taxi. And I've absolutely gotten many library connections through Taxi. Right. So that's really good to hear that you're counted among their many many success stories.
Yeah.
So what were some of those early lessons, early lessons that you learned, one bump and bruise at a time,
Well,
where you're separating, Robbie, the artist versus Robbie, the production music composer?
One of the biggest lessons I learned was to break up with my ego, to be honest. That was the hardest lesson. And I think it is for many that already maybe think they already know what they're doing. And a lot of professional musicians come with a lot of incredible experience into sync licensing, but it is a different animal because, like I said already, it's not giving them what you want or trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. This is more focusing on supporting the scenes and supporting the director and supporting the producer, supporting the actors. So really the song is not the star. And which is what I was taught from my mentors before sync licensing. It's a different animal going for Nashville and radio hits and that sort of thing because they are the stars. But this is more, the scene is the star. And how can you support that with emotion and universal lyrics? And those are the things I started learning on the songwriting side of the equation. And then on the cue side, in the instrumental cue side, I'm sure you've talked to your listeners about what an instrumental cue is.
Yep.
It would be just really focusing on the emotion in different genres in trying to stay out of the way of dialogue. And it's the most important thing that I learned in trying to scoop in that area. I actually remember one time, Dave, I brought a male and a female speaking voice into my DAW to find out where that was coming in, the EQ, and then I try to stay out of that range for that reason. It's hard to do sometimes, but I believe it kind of helped get some of my music through.
Yeah. Why do you think for folks focusing on sync, why do you think the ego gets in it? It's so wrapped up. And I don't know about for you, but for me, I still, a decade into this gig, I'm still having to kind of check my ego at times. And if I'll submit a taxi, for a taxi brief, and then it gets a return and I'm like, they're wrong. I'm a pro.
Yeah.
Why do we get so wrapped up? Why does our ego
I don't know. I think
it's
in the beginning, especially too. And I think maybe there's no guidance and there's people that maybe don't understand the music industry and really how it works. And there's a stigma attached to the music industry that, the way things used to be and, artists get ripped off or they're pay to play and all these other things. But I think if you really spend some time connecting and listening, that's somebody gave me this t-shirt, actually. One of my clients gave it to me. But spend some time listening to those that have been there before you and, have that experience, like meeting taxi screeners, for example, or, people that in the business that can really, befriending them and collaborating with them if you can to learn about the industry and the business side, and how to write for it and why we do it. It's not always about, that's a really good question, Dave. It's not always about, what you want. It is about serving others. And I think that's a big transition but it probably one of the smartest things that you could do for sync. And in general in life, in my opinion, is because that's my whole, Syncers for Music is based on giving. And so if you can support others and give to others, then I think that you're going to do well in sync. You also, there's an element of stubborn as well that you have to have because there's a never give up, never surrender attitude that you have to adopt, as well as knowing that it's a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint, all these things that Dave. And it's there's a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. So I feel like having a community of people to connect with and be able to talk to between conferences, to keep your spirits up when there are those valleys, I think is also important.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's tougher, or it could be tougher for singer-songwriters. Yeah. Because as a drummer and a percussionist, I've lived my entire career looking at everybody else's butt, right? That's been my...
I'm a drummer too, by the way. Did we talk about this?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I got hiding behind the cymbals. I did that for a long time. Yeah. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So drummers just are fundamentally a support instrument. I find the same with bass players, right? Never is the bass player, unless you're like Jocko or Victor Wooten or whatever. Yeah. You're rarely the star of the show. Right. And so singer-songwriters, guitarists, they're kind of out in front. And so you get a lot of validation by personal, or you receive a lot of ego boosting from having your music validated by an audience or whatever. As drummers and percussionists and bass players, again, we're kind of in the background. Viola players also orchestrally are also almost always a support role. And so I have found every viola player I've ever met has been super chill, really easygoing, easy to work with. Whereas like violin one sitting at the corner, oh, you might have an ego problem. And so I could imagine for lead guitarists, for singer-songwriters who are used to kind of being in control, that to have somebody else say, your music isn't working or this isn't good for me, feels personally, because your ego is wrapped up into it, personally, it sticks on them because they're not getting the validation that they feel they should be getting.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's a very smart perspective on things, and I understand that, being a drummer too in that support role. Although I thought it was Keith Moon for a while, so there was that phase. But but the support is absolutely what's necessary in letting go of some of those things. But I have talked to some of those people that come through that are like lead guitar, for example, which really doesn't have much of a place in sync. It's one thing.
Not much call for like shreddy McTapperton.
No, that's a whole other animal, and it's probably not. I wouldn't recommend those people get into sync, really. But there are some shows that have that kind of support, like that kind of shredding support, like biker shows or like Pawn Stars or shows like that. I think they use a lot of that style of music, but still, we don't go off to the big solo anymore. In sync anyway.
Yeah, no, there's just, it's going to step on dialogue. It's going to pull focus. Yeah. And, I've talked about before, it's like in sync when you're talking about writing production music, you mentioned this, we're playing a support role. We are much more like the artwork in a hotel lobby than we are art in a museum.
That's right.
So the art in a hotel lobby exists to support the ambience of the lobby, but people are there to check in and check out. Artwork in the museum, people are there to appreciate the artwork. And so I encourage any of our viewers or listeners right now, think about the last time you were in a hotel lobby, like a La Quinta Inn or something. Can you picture in your mind's eye any artwork? I was at the Road Rally last fall, and I was having a conversation with another participant, and I was like, close your eyes. Name any of the artwork that you see. And they couldn't do it. They're like, I have no idea. And I said, open your eyes. There is art on every single wall that exists solely to support the atmosphere of what's going on. And so I think some folks create art that they expect to be hanging in a museum and try to pitch it to a hotel lobby.
A great analogy. That's exactly right.
Yep. That means that your self has to die a little bit. Your ego has to kind of take a back seat. But here's the good news. Somebody got paid probably pretty well to have their music at the downtown La Quinta in Cleveland, Ohio. Like somebody got paid. Somebody probably makes a very comfortable living making art that is in the Days Inn, Memphis.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think we're absolutely vibing on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So is it out of that idea that events like Sink or Swim music kind of came about? You saw a need for there to be a greater empathy and a more kind of open community?
Yeah, it started with supporting the taxi road rallies online with Michael, and I kind of pitched the idea to him, and so I did a couple of those online, and I'm like, oh, maybe there's something to this, and really kind of focusing on networking, which is really what I wanted to do first and foremost, is have something, and like I said earlier, have something in between these in-person events or any events where people can continue to connect and continue to network. And so that's where it spawned from, wanting to network. And then I think because I'm a teacher as well, have been for a long time, that I started thinking about ways that, could also educate not just myself, but others. But the very first event, in fact, the first 3 events were all based on paying it forward and giving back. And because so many people before me, Dave, have helped me so much that it's just something where you can't help but want to do the same thing eventually.
That's
once
right.
you figure out
Pay it
whatever the
forward,
heck it
yeah.
is that you can do well, like yourself, obviously, podcasts and many other things. And me, I've never written a book, so I didn't think I was going to go in that direction. I might someday. But I was like, you know what, this is a thing, because I went to school for radio broadcasting, and I was supporting another, industry pro for a while as an assistant on Zoom. That, and her and others encouraged me and said, you would probably be a really good host. And that bug was put in my ear, and then it all kind of came together. Like after the pandemic happened and I needed to take things online, as you did too. I just thought now is the time, and I was on my sailboat. And I was looking down
as you do,
installing a transit monitor, and I was looking down in the water, and I was like, I really don't want to sink in that. I'm so glad I can swim. And then that's when the idea hit me that I could create a community based on giving back and paying it forward. So I threw together the weekend in 2 weeks. It was all free. The first 3 were free, attendees for, I'm obviously not paying myself. I'm putting my own money into it at that point, and what if I invite all of my industry pro friends to come out and talk to me for a weekend? And I wonder if people would come. And there was 150 on that first event. So I'm like, I think I might have something here. And so now we're just coming up on event number 7 here in a couple of weeks. And now it's turned into membership and a business, and it's continuing to grow membership. Obviously socials and email list is starting to really get up there now. And so I feel responsible. David's taken over my life. I'm not going to lie to you. It has, since June 2021, it's really, my output for creating has definitely decreased.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at the point now where I've gone through everything over the first couple of years here, to the point where now I can start getting back to composing again, because there's a lot of things in place. And thankfully, with a lot of volunteer team members over the years and people that have helped me get things to where they are, I have a bit more breathing room where I can create more music, as well as maintain this community that's thriving. And, I just, like I said, I lead from kindness and empathy. And I think that's, and I protect the community. I try to keep it safe for people to connect and communicate online, and, help direct traffic. That's the last thing I want to say is direct traffic is really kind of what I do. And it's
totally
like, avoid the sharks and snakes because they're out there, but also here's where I think that you should go. And I don't like to mention the sharks and the snakes because that's not who I am.
Don't give them any more energy.
And then I just endorse, places that I know that have worked for me, like Taxi or the PMA, Production Music Association. Those two, I would send people not only for production music, like instrumental, which it was for a long time, but also for songs now.
Yeah, I think coming from a place of authenticity, of empathy, of kindness, being, free with information, and being from a giving, serving mindset, I think is the only way forward. I think it's the only way forward to have any kind of sustainable, rewarding career. And it's a tenet of 52Qs, even though we have, subscriptions and all of that stuff. I think as far as value and dollar per hour that I spend versus make and everything, it's definitely lopsided, but I'm doing it because it comes out of me naturally.
Right.
And so there's if you just look at the number, there's so much TV that's getting made. Yeah. The table is so big that not one composer can write it all. Mm-hmm. And so we shouldn't be hoarding our secrets. No. The podcast, I put out, like an hour to hour and 20-minute episode every single week talking about PROs or talking about burnout or talking about, Taxi or whatever, with the idea of just putting that out into the universe to help others along, trying to be the thing that I want to have existed in the community to begin with. You know what I mean? I
agree. And it's an abundance mindset. There's plenty to go around for everyone. And I've always felt that. And that's what, that's what enabled me to be able to invite all of my contacts, for everyone else to connect with, because it is kind of crazy. But I thought, and that's when at that point, I really felt strongly about the fact that there's plenty to go around for everybody, and allowing others to connect with the people that have helped me in my life. And it's been great because people are having success already through the community. People are getting deals and they're getting placements and they're earning money already. And it's since membership's only been launched since last June. It's just over a year.
Yeah, which is why when you invited me to come speak at the June event, I jumped at the chance because I think we're vibing on the same, kind of energy and the same wavelength.
Totally.
So
Absolutely.
I'm more than happy, and I'm not expecting any pay or anything. I just want to be a part of it, and I want to help put that positivity out into the universe, which is, at the end of every single podcast, at the end of this episode, I will say, I believe and trust that the universe has amazing plans just for you. And that's not just a saying. That's not a bumper sticker. I honestly believe it. I honestly believe it.
Every morning I go for a swim, 5 days a week. And every time I go under the water, I'm attracting things, attracting all the gifts that the universe has in store for me now. Right. That's right. You know what I'm talking about. We're on the same wavelength.
Like whiteboarding stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck
vision boards. I'm so glad I met you. I met you at Taxi actually. And our mutual friend, Mary, introduced, and I'm so glad that happened. And I'm a huge fan of hers.
100%. So let's talk about the event coming up in June. When is the event happening and how can folks find out about it? And also, this is a three-pronged question. Walk us through what each of those days look like and what folks could expect.
Oh, sure. That's a good question. Let's see. Let me just pull this up here and I'll give you exact details. So there's 4 days. The first day is it's the 22nd to the 25th of this month of June. And there's 4 days. First day is the Thursday regatta, which is a full day of networking. It's actually a boat race officially, but we're racing to connect with each other. Right. And so 9 till 6 is all just networking. So you can pop in.
These are all times Pacific,
Yeah, Pacific times. Yep. The regatta is free and for everyone. And then at 6 o'clock, I do a free pitch and feedback session for anybody who would like that. So that day is a free day. And then the rest of the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can either purchase a ticket and hang out in the chat room, or you can join as a member. And all members, 3 tiers, their annual plans, get passes to our events. And there's 3 events a year. And there's also networking throughout the weekend. But members get the opportunity to pitch and get feedback from the industry pros throughout the weekend, whereas those that aren't members would just be in the chat, kind of hanging out and taking it in and learning about what we do. But I think there's usually, I don't have everyone confirmed yet. It's about halfway there now for
like herding cats, isn't it? So many moving parts.
It's a lot of, it's really based on their schedules too. A lot of the times they can't commit to a lot of the industry pros until weeks before, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. I am waiting back to hear back from, but I have some amazing guests coming through, including the Backpack Kid, who has gotten I think he's over 5 million followers now on TikTok and Instagram. So I managed to get him to come through. And then Rick Emmett from Triumph is another one I just confirmed is a new one coming through. He's one of the biggest bands here in Canada. And he's coming through to chat about things in songwriting. And then definitely some returning guests as well. Judy Rodman's another from Nashville that, she used to do background vocals for Johnny Cash and Ray Charles. And she's #1 hit songs. I mean, you can go and check the list from the previous event, and a lot of the same ones will be coming through. But if you go to my website, which is robbiehancock.com, you'll see a lot of different pages, and one will say Sink or Swim Music. And underneath there's an event registration. I'm sure you can maybe post the link after in your podcast.
Oh yeah, we'll have links in the description and everything.
But that's the main thing. Let's go there to you can register there or buy a ticket there. And also learn more about membership.
Yeah, excellent. So let's back up. Let's look at the networking sessions. What do those look like? Are those Zoom sessions? Are they breakout rooms? But what's happening during those?
Yeah, everything is on Zoom. It's a platform that I feel very comfortable with now, and I've done a lot of work on that over the last several years, even before the pandemic. And so the breakout networking sessions are a chance for you, the listener to this podcast, to connect with industry pros like Dave or myself in smaller groups. So I interview throughout the weekend, and then between those interviews are these breakout networking sessions. And so there's usually within an hour, and I do 3 within an hour in smaller numbers. So groups of 3 or 4 give you a chance to meet someone like Dave and hang out and, try and get their email. It's usually recommended than trying to give them your stuff because they are inundated. But mostly it's about meeting, talking, developing trust relationships like Dave and I are doing right now. And it's just an opportunity for you to connect with those people that are, contacts that I've made and then new people coming through too that I'm starting to connect with that are all kind of related to sync licensing. So that's the networking aspect. And I really have that prevalent throughout the weekend, almost in an annoying way. But the Thursdays.
Yeah. If you look at the schedule, it's like industry pro and then a networking event and then lunch and then a networking event. And I think it's fantastic. And cause they're, I think 45-minute blocks are people kind of rotating around? Or are you in with one person for 45 minutes?
I'm in with one person for 50 minutes and then a 10-minute Q&A.
Gotcha.
And so there's also lunch breaks, like Dave said, and dinner breaks. And also I make sure that we have like 15-minute breaks throughout each day too, to make sure we're getting up and out of the chair and stretching. And I think that's really important. I didn't do that in the beginning. And I have so many hours in the chair that I'm doing it for me for sure, but I'm taking care of others at the same time because that's important. We spend a lot of time doing what we're doing.
Yeah, it's a very kind of sedentary life, and so if you don't make conscious choices to move around, if you have an Apple Watch, it'll tap you every hour, like, Dave, get up, stretch your legs.
Right.
I will say for networking, for me, if you're listening to this and if you're going to be in a room, a LinkedIn profile works really, really great. I've noticed that doing some of the breakout sessions over at the PMA, when they have like the virtual, it's so straightforward and simple to swap out LinkedIn because you can add to the network and everything. And so it wasn't until I went to the PMC and the Road Rally that I really, I understand this real value of LinkedIn. Because before it just felt like kind of business Facebook. I'm like, I'm not going to pay attention to that. But once I started connecting with these music supervisors and other composers who are legitimately on not Facebook, on LinkedIn, that's where I really, really got it. So LinkedIn is super, super valuable for me.
I agree 100%. And it's only getting better and better. Especially the more credits I add. I mean, once I got to the 500 connections point, I certainly got reached out to more. And once I added music supervisor onto my profile, I started getting reached out to a lot now, of course.
Yeah.
But I think in general, it's a really good platform to, it's a fantastic business card. And
it is.
You have everything that you need in there to really look into someone if you need to, or if you want to connect to them. There's an extra feature where you can pay a little bit more money, where you have that messaging for anyone on LinkedIn. But I just got reached out to the other day. It's starting to happen the other way around now. And had a great conversation with a music library in California that are feeding music to NBC Universal right now. So I really am excited about that opportunity, and those things that all happen through LinkedIn. So just backing up what Dave said.
Yeah. Because I might I'm just speaking for me personally, probably not going to be able to like capture a bunch of email addresses and web addresses because I'll maybe put them in a bookmark, but LinkedIn, I have found that that's really worked for me as far as networking. And that's what we do at the PMC when we go into those breakout rooms. Everybody just puts in the chat, here's our LinkedIn, and then we kind of connect with each other, and that creates, kind of a fractal web of connections.
I should mention that the PMC, which is the production music conference ran by the PMA, which is the Production Music Association, and Morgan McKnight are sponsoring this next event coming up as well. Yeah, and as well as Creative BC here in the BC government. This is the third time that they've also sponsored the event. They're actually just signed up for the next 3 because they believe in what I'm doing or we are doing as a team. Like I have a lot of people working and volunteering and team members now with Sinkerswim, and it's just it's great to have that kind of support. But I just want to mention because you mentioned the PMC, which I highly support as well. Yeah, absolutely. I went to both PMC and Taxi Road Rally last year and really, really enjoyed my time there. Great. So for folks that want to come to Sinkerswim in June, what should they prepare? What should they have? You know, because if you go to a road rally, they're like, you need to have this, you need to have this, you probably have a CD and all those things. What should somebody looking to come to Sinkerswim Music in June, what should they expect? What should they expect to prepare? Well, I mapped a Sinkerswim Music event to being in a hotel environment. So each of the sections are different parts of a hotel where you can network. And so elevator, or bar, or lounge, or rooftop patio, or you're in one of those sections, Dave. I don't have it in front of me, but you. You know, and going to conferences, the Taxi Road Rally, and others. You know, I just felt like this amazing opportunity that would happen in person. Everybody's got their badges on and connecting in the bar, and it's just like I've made some of the best connections in person that way. I just wanted to kind of recreate that online as best that I possibly could until we get the headsets and we're able to do it virtually. And I'm a frog coming up to you and you're a kangaroo, right? Which I hope that we are able to do at some point. This is the best way so far. And so what I would recommend is you have your elevator pitch down, which is 15 to 30 seconds, condensed version of you that you've practiced over and over and over again. So you literally, if you're in an elevator and you've got 5 floors to go and you see the person that you really want to connect with and they're like, hey, how are you? What do you do? And you have that spiel down. I am Robbie Hancock. I'm a singer, songwriter, composer, and producer from BC, Canada. I have over 1,500 placements so far. And my sound as a singer-songwriter is Gregory Alan Isaacoff meets Joshua Radin with a sprinkle of Johnny Cash. There you go. So then people will be like, and they'll have that reaction that Dave just had. He'd be like, oh, I like that he threw the Johnny Cash in there. But interesting that 2 of them are contemporary. So that has opened up a lot of conversations. And it's the same thing, Dave, as being like on stage and have something rehearsed over and over and over again. It's a great little business card to have. So that's what I would bring with you for sure throughout the weekend, because we're definitely going to be doing some of that. And, you know, something to take notes. Definitely. Like a playlist or something like that, ready to hit in case somebody asks for it, like disco playlist. That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you're a member, you can submit. Well, on the Thursday, you can submit if you're not a member. So yes, bring disco links only. That's if you're not with disco yet. I'm sure Dave's probably talked about disco. Oh yeah. But they're just industry standard. It's $10 a month. It's well worth it because, you know, for so many reasons, but that's what most of us want. That's definitely what I want. I want links. Don't bring MP3s, and then just have them ready. Yeah, ready to go. Yeah. Ready to go. Yeah, that's really fantastic. You got me thinking about my elevator pitch because I have discovered that who are you? What do you do? Okay. Hi, my name is Dave Croft. I am a composer, producer, drummer, podcaster, and educator, and I run the 52 Qs community where we focus on writing 1 cue per week. I also write music, primarily tension music and sports broadcasting for Discovery Channel and CBS Sports, with hundreds of placements, including the Super Bowl. And so what can I do for you? Yeah, you got to throw Super Bowl. If you make Super Bowl air, that shows up on the resume. You need to put that down. And I like what you said right at the end. What can I do for you? Because that's right. What it's about. If you can be of service to them, they're like, oh, well, this is what I need. Yeah, absolutely. But I've discovered that when I was, working on my elevator pitch, like, I don't think libraries are looking for you to say, I do it all, because nobody really does it all well. And instead, what they're looking for is when they say, what do you do? What they're really kind of asking is, do you do something that I might need help with?
That's what they're asking. And so if you're like, I do it all, they're like, well, I don't have need for all. I have need for a banjo player, right?
That's a really good point. We do clinics as well once in a while, sync clinics, I call them. And just had Matt Hurt on, who's a legendary, call him the godfather of sync. He's just one of the masters. He would never say that about himself, though, so I'll say it for him. But we just had him in, and he talked about niche genres for sync. And so he went through all these different, because he's been doing it for like over 25 years. And so you'd go into, Asian cafe music or French polka music, or these very specific things that he's done over the year that have really gotten some high-end placements. Like you've gotten placements on Spider-Man and like other big movies like that.
Nice.
But I think that niche is what you should work towards, because that's and it's going to help you to stand out, and it's going to break open doors for you. And then once you're in those doors, you're like, hey, here's everybody. And you see all the other composers that you recognize. Yep. And then you have that relationship where you can start getting briefs from libraries and publishers, or direct from supervisors or directors and so on. And that's where things can open up and you can get even more specialized or try new things.
Yeah, or just because there's overlap, there's this niche and then there's a little bit of overlap, the Venn diagram, right? There's a middle ground, and you can kind of spread from there and slowly color every other parts of the map. But for me, niche and figuring out your niche isn't about finding one thing that is selling really well or finding one thing that everybody needs.
No.
Niche is about what comes out of you naturally, what just percolates out of your spirit, out of your muse or whatever. Right. Start with that, and then figure out how that thing can be applied to sync music, to production and library music, and then find homes for it.
That's a really good point, because if you're not doing something that you really love to do,
it's not sustainable.
Get stale. Yeah, that's not sustainable. It's going to get stale, and you're not going to want to continue. And I've been there too myself, and gone down rabbit holes that I had to get out of. And it always came back to doing the things that I really love to do, and then combining that with opportunities when they arise. Yeah,
because the last thing you want is to get success with a style of music you have no interest in writing. You just feel, and then it starts becoming heavy and a burden, and then what Stephen Pressfield calls resistance starts kicking in, and you're like, now resentment, and then burnout, and imposter syndrome, and it's like the snowball, all because you chased after something that you thought maybe you should have been chasing after, or you went after something that is getting a lot of current traction. Like, let's say, for example, dubstep. Nobody's really asking for dubstep, but let's say dubstep is really selling a lot, and you don't listen to it, you don't enjoy it, but you figured out how to write it and get success. And then the library says, love it, Robbie. We're going to need 20 dubstep cues, in 3 months. And now you've just changed yourself. You've committed yourself to 19 more cues that you abhor writing.
Yeah, my ears are bleeding. No,
yep, exactly.
But some people love that, and I think it's subjective.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I love writing like epic orchestral hip hop and percolating Thomas Newman tension and intrigue music. But some folks just like give me chord changes, right? I'm like, no, just let me sit on one chord for 2 straight minutes. Well, some people that feels creatively suffocating. So one man's treasure is another man's trash, I guess.
Right.
But
that's right.
But Robbie, thank you so much. Tell us one more time where folks can find out about you and Sink or Swim Music.
Sure. sinkorswimmusic.com or robbiehancockmusic.com. Either one of those will take you to the same site, because everything is all in the same place, so people know who I am and what I do as a leader in the community. And then there's the Sink or Swim Music page, and you'll find a lot of information under that tab. But I certainly would love to, I'm open to anyone, if anyone wants to send me a message, or, I'm happy to answer any questions over the next few weeks if anyone wants to come.
Yeah, absolutely. The dates are June 22nd through the 24th, 2023.
25th.
And the 25th, I'm sorry, 22nd through the 25th.
Yeah.
And so if it's well past that, and this is future you listening to this, just know that he does these. You said you do these several times a year?
3 times a year. That's what I can keep up with right now.
Right. So the next one's right around the corner.
Next one,
even if you've missed the one in June.
That's
here.
Right.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Robbie, thank you so much. Just know that I really, really appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it, and I'm honored. And thank you for asking me to join and to help you out. I can't wait. It's going to be good.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting with you that weekend as well.
Again, a huge word of thanks to Robbie for joining me on the podcast. And as a reminder, the Sink or Swim music event is June 22nd through the 25th, 2023. We'll have links to all of that you can check out. But in the meantime, you can go to robbiehancock.com and click on Sink or Swim Music to check out more information. By the way, I think my speaking time is Friday the 23rd at 5:30 Eastern. Or 2:30 Pacific. So yeah, if you want to hear me chat, then check that out for sure. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear from Mrs. 52Q's Shannon Croft, who's going to tell us all about how you can join the community. And when we come back, we're going to be listening to a roots rock style cue written by community member Christoffer Bjerklund.
Hey y'all, I'm Shannon Croft, and I want to tell you that the 52Qs podcast is made possible by viewers and listeners just like you, composers and producers who are looking for a better way to connect and collaborate. You see, 52Qs isn't just another website selling static, pre-recorded videos to a mass audience. It's a fun, vibrant, and positive community that comes together online for sharing cues, getting feedback, and discussing what's up in the production music industry. You'll find both personalized feedback and live interaction, which are the best and fastest ways to grow your skills and earn more placements. The best part is that the 52Qs community is absolutely free. And when you're ready to take your career to the next level, we offer friends and family subscriptions, which unlock weekly live streams, live interactive group feedback sessions, monthly interactive workshops, and more. Head over to 52qs.com and sign up today. And while you're there, check out our personalized feedback videos, private lessons, and of course, merch. I can't wait to see you at 52qs.com.
All right, that was Green and Gold by Christoffer Bjerklund. Thank you so much for sending this along. I thought this was super creative, lots of really good ideas here, and it does kind of defy kind of categorization a little bit. And I know in your posting here, you said an open sounding thing that needed a lot of attention of human performance, but I think it was worth it. Part of why I spent that time is that I saw the opportunity to make a display piece of fingerstyle guitar and electric guitar, as well as bass and drums, which are things I want to offer as a service or show my strength in collaboration. And I thought the mix was a little too brash and unrefined. I was honestly just a little trigger happy on uploading, but I love a bit over the top, loud in the room kinds of sounds. But no, I really do appreciate you sending this along. As far as its applicability to production music, which is the lens through which we look at everything here at 52 Qs. I feel like it's a little jam bandy and a little wandering. I feel like it took a little bit too long to kind of get on to where we needed it to be. Really kind of protracted intro here that like just kind of took too long to get down to business. And so I think we probably, because we are at 35 seconds here at the top, and it took 35 seconds for the real meat of the cue, which is this. All right, so I feel like we could have trimmed that up a little bit. The sounds were a little harsh, especially I think the overheads a little bit later. Those ride bells and the snap of the snare drums really popping out. Might be overly compressed on that snare drum, or it might just need some limiting. Yeah, it's only in spots where the snare drum really pops out. Yeah, it might just be bringing the overheads down, or just tamping down the highs on those. So I feel like we could probably stand to make the structure a little bit more predictable, make the structure a little bit more overt, probably add some more variations so that it shows up kind of in the waveform, because editors are going to look at the waveform because they see music before they really listen to it, at least in the editor, the video editor. And so it looks a little samey to me, but I did enjoy this. The other thing I would say, and I super applaud your recording everything. As a drummer myself, even though I have a drum set in the background, I am much more likely to put virtual drums than actually record drums, because there's a whole set of challenges. And some super creative drum set playing here, like with the toms. It sounds like toms with mallets and those types of things. But I think in general, everything from the drums to the guitars can just be tightened up a little bit. And it's a real challenge and a balance, because we don't want to over tighten up and quantize to where it sounds super on the grid and you squash the life out of things. But we also want to make sure it doesn't sound kind of sloppy, and there's a little sloppiness to it. But again, it's a fine line, because sloppiness, as it were, I'm not using that term like pejoratively, it's just things aren't super tight. I could point to some Led Zeppelin recordings where like John Bonham's like, bro, you're really, really off the beat, or you're behind the beat, or not to mention squeaky Speed King kick drum pedals, but that's a whole other podcast. But I just think it needs to be tighter. And so my recommendation would be to lock kind of things onto the grid and then ease the strength of that quantization. Have to be careful if you're quantizing, drums, making sure that everything's staying in phase and all of that. That can be a whole other bag of headaches. But it just feels a little, I just feel like things aren't quite together. Like you had that there that came in the background. Or it's not really sitting into the pocket. Yeah, so I think we could just tighten up the quantization on that, making sure not to overly squash things out. I think we can make the form a little bit more editable or predictable. And let's end on a 1 chord. Ending on that unresolved. Yeah, they're definitely gonna want to end on the button. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure. When it gets really high up there into kind of David Gilmour dentist drill range, I think we have to be really careful. That's probably going to step all over dialogue if it's a background type of cue. My question for you would be, what type of scene do you see this in? What type of scene under dialogue do you see this in? Or what type of scene without dialogue? Because as it is right now, this feels like a piece of music that would be listened to and really enjoyed. But from a production music side of things, which again is the lens through which we hear everything, it needs some structural work so that it kind of makes sense to an editor to put under the background so it doesn't pull focus. Gold and Green, as far as a title, I think that's cool. It doesn't really describe what the cue could mean in a usage. With our production music titles, we want to help music supervisors out by kind of suggesting what the cue could be used for or what emotion it's conveying. And I'm not really getting emotional information, nor am I getting potential usage information from the title. As a piece of music on an album, of Christoffer's tracks, I think it works. For me, it's a rootsy rock kind of thing. And if you go kind of rootsy or down home or highway kind of, sounds, then you're helping to manage the expectations by putting a title which communicates that, right? Like you could put like green and gold roots. I don't know what that means, but the word roots for me, if you put that in the title, it helps to manage the expectation of the music supervisor or the editor before they ever hit play. And so if they know what they're going to get is an indie, rootsy, Americana-y flavored type of a thing, then they're not necessarily going to be expecting like Yngwie precision on the guitar playing. And so we can use the title to really help communicate that. But once again, thank you so much for sending this along. I did enjoy it and I appreciated it. I always love finding new types of sounds and new types of cues, especially from newer members to the community. And so, like I said, this was sent along during our week 22 feedback thread. We put feedback threads together every single week. And this week we are collecting sounds for week 23 or collecting tracks for giving feedback, leaving feedback. I encourage you to join. Joining 52 Cues is free, but I will be choosing one of these cues to feature on next week's episode. So that's going to do it for me. By the way, if you found that feedback helpful and want feedback on your own cues and don't want to wait to necessarily try to get onto the podcast, head over to 52cues.com/coaching, where you can dial up and order up your own feedback video where I will break down the mix, break down the song structure, form, harmonic language, melodic choices, titles, all of those things. Head over to 52cues.com/coaching. And while you're there, you can also book a one-on-one session with me via Zoom. And you can register for our summer 2023 mastermind, which is now open for registration. The cost for that is $399 and includes a 12-week program, weekly Zoom meetings, along with a private one-on-one session with me. Once again, that's $399. Head over to 52cues.com/coaching. Would love to have you for the mastermind. Seats are limited. We keep the numbers very small because it's a small, intimate group of composers who come together and workshop ideas and listen to each other's cues, talk about industry topics. It's really, really, really great. So I'd love to have you on the mastermind. And payment plans are available as well if that's something you're interested in. So you definitely want to join me next week. On next week's podcast, I'm going to be talking about how being a gamer has helped me be a better composer. How gaming and being a gamer has influenced and improved my composition game. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Once again, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patrons of 52Qs who help keep all of this going. Please know that I love and appreciate every single one of you, but that's going to do it for me. I hope that you've had a fantastic week 22, and I know that your week 23 is going to be amazing. How do I know that, friends? Because I know and trust that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52Qs podcast is copyright 2023 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52qs.com.